let's run it back though. I would like to ask you a personal question, right? What kind of got you started in this movement? So I know you have Belle Monique. You've been doing amazing with that. You have the IAMBELLE organization. But what got you started with saying, "No, what I want to take this on as almost like a life purpose"?
Because it is my life purpose as a Black woman. Like I think the older you get as a Black woman specifically, if you're somebody who's knowledgeable and who's aware, you start to realize how you are at the very bottom of the totem pole. And
In
even
what
though
capacity?
in all capacities. So like I mentioned before, especially if you're a darker skinned Black woman, how I mentioned colorism. Colorism affects Black women in a way that it doesn't affect Black men.
Yeah.
A lot of times you guys are praised for your deep skin tones and we're not. You know, sexism, that doesn't affect Black men the way that it does affect a Black woman. And racism as well. Like we're literally at the very bottom. We check off all the boxes. Like we're too dark, we're female, and then what was the other one that I mentioned? And then yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, yeah.
So it's interesting. So when you're saying, can you give specific examples? I know for a fact. So I just based off my background, you already know I used to run a couple school programs, and I was shocked. It was very apparent. Was honestly sad to me when I met a couple young Black women who felt like they were ugly simply based off their skin color. And I was a little bit lost with like, what do you mean you feel like you're ugly? And I had to take a couple steps back and take responsibility even myself. When we look at the rap videos, when we look at the media, everything seems as though the lighter you are, the more praise you get, the more attention that you get. So if you do feel, or if you are a darker skin color, you might really think that you're not as beautiful as someone else. Do you feel like how do you feel like we can actually change that narrative?
How Black men can change that narrative?
Or even in general?
I think maybe I'm saying this out of frustration, but it's kind of like when white people ask Black people, like, what do you think we should do to help, make things better? And it's like the Black woman, like, yo, I'm so tired of telling you what you should do to change the narrative within your own community as a leader of that community. When you have the resources to look at history, you have the resources to look into the plight of the Black woman. As a group, you just choose not to. And it's frustrating to constantly have to like hold hands and.
So you don't think we choose not to look into these issues? I don't. The reason why I'm saying is like it feels like when we're dealing with so many different issues, unfortunately, it doesn't matter whether it's poverty. You know what? When it comes to dealing with issues, unfortunately, even the way the brain works, we become selfish. We think about ourselves only, what I'm currently dealing with, what I'm currently facing, and at times it becomes a dog-eat-dog world. And unfortunately, like you're saying, out of all races, who's in the bottom of the totem pole? Black people. Out of genders, who's in the bottom? Woman. So right now, unfortunately, like woman would be on the bottom of that totem pole. But for us to grow as a community, I think you're absolutely right. Like we do have to kind of figure out ways to put women on the black woman specifically.
You know what I think?
Go ahead.
To answer your question, the way that Black men could help is by learning how to truly love themselves. And even like you and I have had this conversation before, how men don't view self-care the way that they should.
No.
And how men don't think about their mental health the way that they should.
Shit's annoying.
And I think a lot of times, as cliche as it sounds, until you've taken care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. And a lot of, the issues about surrounding colorism, because you don't have to look in music or media, colorism is right within our own families, Like I have people, I'm not going to mention, around me who have never dated a Black woman before, but I'm their, sister, their best friend, their niece, their cousin, whatever, and they love me, but they would never marry somebody who looks like me. And that, although it's offensive to me, it also makes me wonder, why wouldn't you want to connect with somebody who looks like you? Why wouldn't you want your son and your daughter to look like you? There's a sense of pride in that, that white people have, Hispanic people have, Asian people have. They want their legacy to be familiar.
Yeah.
But it seems like we're the only group of people where we don't want our own to look like us.
Do you think that might be due to certain systems in place, though?
Of course. Everything has to do with conditioning and nurture and systems, but like what else can you do about it but figure out how to mend it now? We could always look back and say like this is the reason why I am the way that I am, but how do you fix it now with that information?
True. So you said something I think is highly important. So you're like, it will be hard for black men to take care of black women if they don't even know how to take care of themselves.
Yes.
And in those facts, I mean, we could look at all the fucking statistics where black men suck right now.
And I know I'm generalizing.
Yeah,
like, it's not all black men.
Of course, we're generalizing, but stats kind of back you up where black men are committing suicide at a very fast rate. Black men mental health issues are completely off the charts, right? And even with the work I'm doing, black men don't show up, right? Typically, black women will show up when it comes to the emotions and the vulnerabilities, all that gushy stuff. But black men have yet to recognize that we are dealing with so much in our mindset that we don't even know how to speak and be vulnerable about, that suppression is leading to depression, that depression is leading to killing yourself emotionally, spiritually, and physically. So I think you're absolutely right on that. But if the focus would be on black men taking care of themselves, wouldn't black women almost be left behind during that conditioning or during that unlearning to relearn again?
No, anytime you love yourself, genuinely, it's like loving yourself isn't a selfish thing. If you genuinely love yourself, that pours out into everybody in the community. And I think that a lot of black men, not all black men, they think they love themselves. You know what I mean? Like it's an external thing. They might have a whole bunch of women and have material things, and they think like that's love. They have money, but it's not genuinely loving who you are, loving your skin, loving your people. Like it goes deeper than that. And when you do that, you naturally show love to other people.
So what would you say in the flip side when people would say, well, black women date and marry a whole bunch of black white men? What would you say about that in general?
Somebody said something.
You took a deep
Somebody
breath
said
with that.
something that I thought was so dope. They said that black women are forced to date outside of their race. Black men choose to. And I'm like, that's the realest thing that I've ever heard. It is very rare for you to hear a black woman say, I don't like black men. I don't want to date black men for no apparent reason other than like, that's just not my preference, because some of y'all like to say that shit. But for black women, it's like, I've gone through so many black men who have done me wrong, have cheated on me, abused me, you know, like I feel like I have to start looking elsewhere because I'm getting older, my eggs are drying up, and like I need to look to another race to try to, you know, find love. It's usually not a conscious decision or like, you know, deliberately like this is my preference.
So you really just think in general black men suck at dating?
I think black men suck at self-love. And I say that from a very loving and compassionate place, that to the point where I don't think you guys even really notice how much you don't love yourselves.
Can you give more? So you talked about colorism, which is huge. You talked about dating, how black men tend to choose to date outside the race. And is that some type of, if you can't look at your own and have that level of love for it, and you love people that don't look like you, that's some level of self-hatred in ways.
Yeah, and a lot of people will say, you know, like, that doesn't matter. It's preference. Everybody should, you know, do whatever they want.
Generally speaking now, we're being general, but go ahead.
Yeah, and it made me, the other day I was thinking about that because I'm like, that's valid. Like, people do have the ability to choose whoever they want to be with, and that's cool. And it made me think of the whole natural hair movement when you had a lot of black women who didn't know what their original, like, natural texture even looked like because they've relaxed all their lives. To somebody like, she wouldn't consider herself hating herself or not loving herself. But in reality, it is you not loving yourself because you've never embraced what comes naturally to you. You might say, I prefer my hair to be straightened, but if you've never embraced your hair to be curly, if you've never embraced your natural state, there is a part of you that hates yourself. A black man might say, I have a preference to be with, you know, exotic, Hispanic, whatever women, but if you've never embraced your own, if you've never loved your own, there is self-hate there.
So do you not agree with the theory then? And this is a great conversation. Thank you. Do you not agree with the theory? Because a lot of people, there's different sides of the coin. I've heard both sides where they say Hispanic and Latino women are also black and African women. Do you agree with that theory? So if a black
Technically, yeah.
technically, yeah. So if a black man says, well, maybe my preference is dating Spanish women, is that not considered dating black women in way?
So this goes back to how I mentioned colorism. A lot of the people, the women, the black women that you will hear all up in arms about black men not claiming them is because black men are specifically talking about black women who are dark skinned. And that's why I mentioned colorism. Do whatever you want, but once you denounce us because the color of our skin, you are literally doing the same thing that the white man does to you. You're just the black woman's oppressor now.
Shit.
We're black.
Damn.
we might need some sound effects. Right?